Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here, host of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. AutoLeadStar is automotive's first and leading customer data and experience platform, CDXP. Top dealers invest in CDXPs to unify dealership data sources, automatically create one-to-one customized journeys, and execute omni-channel shopping experiences. Today, we have Dave Warren coming to the podcast. Dave, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is actually the first time that we get to connect, so I'm looking forward to learning about you and the dealership. Dave is the owner of Dave Warren CDGR in New York. He has years of experience in the retail automotive space and is determined to make the world a better place. He specializes in advertising, budgeting, inventory management, leadership, marketing, and so much more. So we look forward to hearing all about your expertise on today's episode.
Great. Can't wait to get started.
Yeah. So before we do jump into some of the nitty gritty and how your dealership's been doing, I'd love to get some insight into how you ended up in automotive. Everyone has a really interesting story. I've heard like the very basic, like, oh, my father, to some really crazy stories. So I'd love to hear yours.
Well, that's funny because it is a crazy story. So let's see, I graduated high school in 1993, not really sure what I wanted to do. So school was never really my favorite thing. So I figured I'll take a year off and see what happens. So I found an ad in a newspaper for a sales job. So I went to it and got hired on the spot. And long story short, it was actually a sales job going door to door selling rainbow vacuum cleaners.
Okay.
And so I did that for a month and actually had some really good success at doing that. And I'll never forget, my dad walked into my room the one night and he said, listen, he says, I know you're having success at this and I know you're doing well and I'm proud of you, but at the same token, one day you're going to get married and have grandbabies. And I just cannot see you supporting my grandbaby selling vacuum cleaners door to door. So he had some relationships. He used to run a professional bowler's tour stop in our hometown. And one of the sponsors for that event was a car dealership. And so he had that connection, told him what I was doing, and they gave me a used car sales job that day. So, the rest is kind of history from there. So I started there, sold cars for about 4 years. And then I got an opportunity to start going to the auction and buying cars and then doing backup F&I. And once I was doing that, I got noticed at the auction buying cars. And then that turned into a full-time job, being a wholesaler buying cars for a big auto group. And then from there, they promoted me to used car manager. And then I got married, had kids, had twin daughters, and then came back to my hometown of Erie, PA, and worked my way up from a new car manager to GSM to GM. And multiple times at that store where I was GM for 10 years, I tried to buy that store and the owner just would never let go of or give me the opportunity to do that. And through a friend, he knew of this store that was for sale, which is the store that I have now, and had a mutual connection with a guy that was looking to buy more stores, that was looking for somebody like me, that didn't have all the capital, because it takes so much capital to own one of these things.
Yeah.
And so basically that was his business model. His business model was to find young guys that were talented and give them the opportunity. And obviously there was a buy-in on my part. And 8 years later, here we are.
That's awesome. And it's really cool how you basically did you had so much exposure to the dealership before and you knew exactly that that's what you wanted to do. I like that story a lot. And I'm sure you can attribute some of the success to the vacuums, no?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still remember the pitch to this day. You take the air, you take the air that you breathe in, you put it through the dirtiest place in your home and right back out in the air you breathe. Why would you want to do that?
See, that's awesome.
And that was the pitch.
I love that. No, but I also think there's a lot. I mean, you have to be in order to understand car sales, I feel like any sales position where you're really hustling is a good way to get in. I actually just had a podcast with another dealer of Mercedes-Benz of Easton. And he came from Israel. He finished the IDF. He was like, I don't want to go to school. That's not my thing. I know I can hustle. I know I can sell. He saw an ad. He started at a dealership, and it was just like, that's how he started his career. So that's what I love about automotive. It's just a place for everyone.
And I tell a lot of people that once you get into it, it's like a fraternity. It's tough to get out. I mean, it's hard to believe that, coming up this year will be 30 years for me in the car business. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, I know also so many people who tried to get out and then they just boomerang right back into the industry. They go, oh, I went to healthcare for a few years but I couldn't leave. They all come back. It's a wonderful industry. And now you are opening up a new LSV and power sport dealership point, right? In 2020.
Yes. Yeah. So we, thank you. We're looking to widen our footprint. And part of that footprint was a separate used car dealership. So I found that actually it used to be an old Pontiac Buick GMC dealership that was available. So it's sitting as an empty lot. And so it, excuse me, my dog just walked in here.
Okay, he's invited on the
podcast. She wanted to know what was going on here. You wanted to be on the podcast? So here she is. I don't know if you can see her.
Oh, what's her name?
Okay. Her name's Goldie.
Goldie, beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, come on. You got to get down. So, anyways. So anyway, we, as we were standing there, and I said to myself, man, I just don't know if a standalone used car lot is going to make it in today with how tough things are right now. And obviously we can get into that in a little bit. But I stumbled across, I really started going down the path of maybe, hey, let's open this with a power sports lot and a used car location. So, the problem with, trying to get in the power sports business is you're in a situation where it's kind of like the car market. If you're in with any of the big brand names, now it becomes a race to the bottom of trying to sell it. So I stumbled across this company called Bintelli, and Bintelli makes street legal golf carts, which are LSVs. They're low speed vehicles. So these are vehicles that you can actually drive on the road. Every state has their different policy, but in New York State, it can be driven on any road that's 35 miles an hour or less, and you put an actual plate on it and everything. So we're excited about that. They also do the e-bikes, which is a very big thing that is popular today. So we'll have that there, and then we are teaming up with a brand called Argo, which if you're a big hunter or fisherman, you know that brand. They make 6-wheeler, 8-wheelers that are amphibious vehicles, and now they've also gotten into the 4-wheeler and the side-by-side game as well. So really excited about that. It's kind of a fresh thing for me, I guess, something new, something different. Plus, we'll still have the automotive side there as well. So.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see like the marketing strategies and the different audiences and how you roll something like that out. You'll come back on and tell us how that will go. Do you have an estimated date of when that should open?
So actually, we did a soft opening here in the month of December, and from there, we are going to do a grand opening come in February, March. We have some big auto shows planned. The governor of New York is real big in this whole EV push. So we are going to have a separate booth up at the Buffalo Auto Show where we're going to be pushing, this and introducing a lot of the stuff to the public.
When it comes to the marketing strategy this past year, how did you, was there anything specific that you implemented? It doesn't even have to be marketing. Let's say marketing and sales, just because there were so many things in the market that was changing. The market was so dynamic that dealers had to be very quick and flexible when it came to, implementing different strategies, or maybe you had the right strategies in place that could already be dynamic based on the market. But was there anything that you feel like you did that really helped you react to, for example, inventory changes or used car market prices and things like that?
Well, I think there for a while, it was a dream come true for most car dealers. You couldn't do anything wrong.
Right,
You'd go
that's
buy a
true.
car at the auction, or you take something in on trade, and then in 2 weeks it's worth more money. So
Right, right.
we were all living in a time where, like, mistakes couldn't be made. And so now I've seen here in the last probably 90 days, even maybe a little bit more than that, that we're getting back to the reality of what, our industry was per COVID. So, to touch on marketing stuff, we didn't do a ton during that period because, obviously, I hate to say this, but you didn't really have to.
Yeah.
The demand was so high, and that, so now going into 2023, we have teamed up with a gentleman by the name of David Pritchard. He owns iPit Crew, and we're really putting, I guess, all of our eggs in one basket with him and Auto Lead Star, just because, I felt like I've always been very good in marketing, but anymore now, this market and the internet and the way things are being done and how things are changing, it's almost impossible to keep up on. I feel like it's changing every day. So,
No human
we
can like possibly keep up with that type of
no,
speed. So
correct. So that's what, really impresses me with, the AI technology that Auto Lead Star has. We've been able to use them here the last, we've put all of our eggs in their basket, like I said, in the last 60 days, and I've seen huge returns on that investment, and can't wait to see what happens going into 2023. But I think that, my forecast for 2023 is that it's going to be an even stronger used car market. And I know
yeah,
when when I say that to people, they look at me like I have three heads, but I think that, the manufacturers are slower, at least our brands are slower to react to what is going on in the marketplace than maybe what us car dealers are. And what I mean by that is, I'm still looking at incentives or lack of incentives on new vehicles, even though inventory levels are starting to get back to the levels that we once had prior to COVID, and there's no incentives. Well, with the Feds continuing to increase interest rates and no help, so to speak, from the manufacturers, it still comes down to what people can afford, right? And
well,
so that's why I think the
that's
used car market is going to be strong again in 2023, because I just don't think a lot of people are going to be able to afford, with interest rates being higher. Obviously new car prices have continued to climb. We're in a very large leasing market, and, I've got people that are coming out of Grand Cherokee leases that are, used to paying $450 a month, and now we're quoting them $750 a month. Well, it's just not going to happen. So I think a lot of those people are either going to buy their leases out, or which is then is going to hold back, there's going to be less inventory hitting the market as usual. And then I think what you're going to run into is that a lot of people are going to be buying 1-year-old, 2-year-old cars because that's what they're going to be able to afford with the interest rates. So, I mean, I know we've had a huge drop in the used car market here in the last, 90 to 120 days, but I think once we get into 2023, I think you're going to see that rebound.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Now, going back to what you said about it was kind of a car dealer's dream come true, meaning there was nothing that you could do wrong, right? Because the supply was low, demand was high. You were selling cars probably before they even hit your lot. Do you feel like the training, or do you feel like your staff will kind of be need to be retrained in the sense of like, okay, we're back to reality. What does it mean to negotiate? What does it mean that when we no longer have the upper hand? How do you think you're going to deal with that as a dealer coming back to reality with, a whole new perspective for the sales team?
Well, it's funny that you brought that up. So, we had my last 20 group meeting was in, I think, late October, November. And we came back, and that was the first meeting I had with my staff. I brought everybody in. I said, hey, listen,
Interesting.
This wave has crashed, in my opinion. So, the luxury that y'all have had of somebody walking in and saying, hey, I want the black one. Okay, here
I'll
you
do
go,
whatever
dude.
it is.
Yeah, exactly. Is gone. I said, so now it gets back to, you're going to have to, turn over every stone until you find any car deal that you possibly can. And, you're going to have to get back to selling and building value and building trust with a customer, not just being an order taker, which is pretty much what a lot of us had the luxury of doing for the past 2 years. So now it's back to, what makes us different as a dealership, what makes you different as a salesperson, what makes our product different, and then giving the customer a good experience. Because at the end of the day, nobody really makes a bad product anymore. People just want to buy from people that they like and trust. And I don't think that will ever change, whether you're selling vacuum cleaners or you're selling, automobiles. So
yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, and I try to talk about this in the podcast a bit, just because I know a lot of dealers were sitting back, which is fine, but especially for new salespeople coming to the industry for the first time and thinking, oh, this is how we sell cars in automotive. I think there'll be a nice, slap in the face when we get back to normal levels of inventory. And then of course there's obviously what happens when we go back to having cars in my lot for too long, lot rot, et cetera. What is my strategy going to be for pushing those cars off my lot? From marketing and sales perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's what we're doing right now is we're trying to look at every aspect of the business. And what I mean by that is, first, obviously we've got to retrain everybody. So that's the first and foremost. But we're even looking at like vehicles that we would normally wholesale. Well, we're trying to look at a different perspective of that. And well, somebody's buying that car, whether it's at an auction, an online auction, wherever it may be. So why not allow us to be that same person that sells that and having a different way of doing that, where we explain to the customer, hey, this is a special price. This car is just state inspected, that's all it is. But just looking at every app and trying to basically pick every apple that we possibly can off the tree to make sure that we're successful. Because the problem is my biggest fear right now is all of my employees had for the last 2 years their best income year ever. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of us are not talking about is, you're going to have quality people want to jump ship because they're not making the money that they made over the last 2 years, even though they're not contributing the same to the pot, so to speak. So what I'm trying to do is get everybody more involved in looking at that big picture as well. So we're trying to basically, like I said, look at every stone that we possibly can of opportunities to continue to make that profit. Yeah,
that's smart. And I think other dealers should follow that and make sure that their team is also just well equipped for whatever will come in 2023. Thank you so much. This was super informative. I specifically liked your perspective on used car because I usually hear the opposite. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with used car market in 2023.
Yeah, and it's a very volatile market, so we'll see what happens. But I'm hoping that, we get some type of normalcy and, we don't have this wave going on as much as we've had over the last 90 days. But, one thing about car dealers in our industry, we always adapt and, we always figure it out. So that's the one thing that I absolutely love about this business. And that for the most part, everybody's willing to help out, whether it's a podcast or a meeting or whatever it may be. It usually seems like most people in this industry want to see other people succeed. So that's one beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that the nature of the industry, which what we opened up with, meaning you don't have to necessarily have any kind of education to come into the automotive industry. It's about hustle, motivation, which is really all that matters. Good company culture. So that's what I love about the industry. It seems like that's what you love about the industry. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. This is Inside Auto Podcast. Sorry you won't be at NADA, Dave, but hopefully I'll get the opportunity to meet you another time.
Yeah, hopefully soon. And anytime you need me to come on, I'd be more than happy to come back on.
Well, yeah, you're going to have to come back in a year. We're going to have to look at your predictions and see what happens.
Yeah, see if I'm a Nostradamus or a big failure.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.